Hello and welcome once again to another episode of the Kate and Eric Show podcast. It is Independence Day week, so happy Independence Day, you rascally traitors. So hopefully you had a great Independence Day. It is really late Friday evening here when I'm recording this. So hopefully you had a great Independence Day. If you are an American, if you are not, well, then happy July 4th and do whatever it is that you do on July 4th. But yes, happy Independence Day week. And welcome to the show. Thank you very much for listening. You can also follow me on Facebook, X, TikTok, Truth Social, YouTube, and Instagram. The Kate and Eric Show on all of those social media platforms. So American Independence Day was yesterday. We are 200 and almost 50 years old, almost 250 years old, 248 years old now. So, and it's been a good run. You know, we've had a lot of great things. You know, we've accomplished a lot of great things. We've freed a lot of people, and we put people on the moon. And even though other country has done that. We've made a lot of great inventions, chocolate-chip cookies, sliced bread. Electricity, that kind of stuff. So it's been great. It's been a great almost 250 years. And the administration currently in office is doing everything they can to destroy how great America is. So the debate, there's still more on the debate that I'd like to get to here. It was just a fantastic debate. The excuse now from the White House is that Joe Biden had a cold, so we'll get into all that. There's plenty of things to talk about with that. But first, sports update. Of course, we always have to talk about the Houston Astros because, let's face it, they have been the best team in the last 7 years in baseball. If you're not a baseball fan, well, shame on you, and I apologize, but it is one of the best sports, great American sports. Speaking of Independence Day, in Independence Day week, it is the best sport out there. Football is very, very good, and I have loved football for a very long time, but baseball has become my new passion. Well, not necessarily new. I've loved it for quite a while now. But the Astros won tonight in Minnesota. They were up 13-5 going into the bottom of the ninth and proceeded to give up 7 runs, almost blew the whole game, but they did end up winning 13-12. So a win is a win. It doesn't matter how many runs you get. And they have now won 13 of the last 15 games. And if Seattle loses tonight, hopefully they lost, they will be within a game of first place in the West, the AL West. Isn't that awesome? We went from last place to almost first. We are 1 to 2 games, depending on what happens with Seattle tonight. Outside first place. That is so awesome. During that long time of May and April when it was just dreadful and they had lost a crap ton, had the worst losing record I think in franchise history. I don't remember what the numbers are, but that's not the important part. The important part is they've turned their season around here right before the All-Star break, so hopefully they can keep going strong. Texas is kind of fallen off as well. They are in third place in the AL. New York, the Yankees, they were cruising for like 150 wins. They've kind of fallen apart now, and Baltimore has taken first place there in the AL East. And the NL, there's not really, maybe the Giants because that's where my family is from. My mom was born over there in the Bay Area, but it's kind of what's the sports world. College football, I believe, will start here in, what do we have, like a month and a half? Something like that. So that'll be great. That'll be fun. And the NFL shortly after that. So there's kind of the sports update or just baseball update because there is no other sport going on right now. Well, I guess there are the Olympics coming up. So if you're excited about that, then that'll be fun. Hopefully Team USA can go into Paris and France and crush the entire world like they usually do and take home gold. All I have to say is the basketball Team USA basketball, they better win gold because if not, that is just sad and pathetic that our NBA player. I know the rest of the world is doing better, obviously with the Mavs player, what's his face? I forget where he's from, like Serbia or something like that. I don't know. There's a few of them that are from outside the U.S. that are really good, but come on, it's an American sport. Go over there, be like the dream team, and just dominate. That will be great. That would be fantastic if they can just do that. And yeah. So the debate. There's a lot still to cover on that. The White House is in damage control over the horrendous debate that happened. And so their excuse now is that, Joe Biden, he had a cold. He was jet lagged. He was recovering. He spent 6 days in Camp David preparing for this debate. And you're telling me he has jet lag from Europe 12 days ago? Come on now. I mean, that's just they just insult us anyway and every way they possibly can. Because let's go back here and let's go over some of the brilliant things that he said over the last, month or so, because he was, he's so exhausted. And so let's kind of go over some of that. This is, I believe, the Juneteenth. He had some kind of event there. The White House did. So here, let's just listen to that.
Well, she knew so long as she was denied, our freedom can never be secured. They risked their lives in every war since the founding of our ideals, and we don't know fully what American soil is. Equality and freedom.
Yeah, so apparently we don't know what American soil is. We haven't figured out what that is yet, what American soil is. So, there's that. This is I believe that same speech there in the Juneteenth celebration.
Well, I've never seen anything like this before. That was outstanding. Thanks to all the performers here tonight and to help us feel the power of black culture that is American culture. That's because of you and generations before you who led the march from slavery to freedom toward more than a perfect union. But let's be clear. They're old ghosts in new garments trying to take us back. Well, there are. Taking away your freedoms, making it harder for black people to vote. Or have your vote counted. Closing.
So I just want to pause it there for who is trying to make it harder for blacks to vote or people of color to vote? There's nobody doing that. They can vote and they can get an ID just like everybody else. And in fact, they do. Yeah, they all have IDs. They all can go vote. Nobody's, suppressing their vote. So what the crap is he talking about?
Doors of opportunity. Attacking the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion. If you can believe it, banning books about black experiences. Okay.
Wait. This is my favorite part. This is my favorite. So we're banning books for black history? No, there's nobody on the right. There's no Republican out there saying that we're going to ban books of blacks. That's just not a thing. Nobody's talking about that. If you want to go back and talk about how bad, speaking of banning books or changing history, I recently took my kids here. There's by the Mercury One, part of the Blaze Network. There, they have a museum, and they have the books that the education books that Woodrow Wilson, that lovely president, The one that showed the KKK propaganda video in the White House. Yeah, that same guy. Big racist. Awful, just a horrible president. Yeah, he changed our history books. He took out all the great black and people of color Americans from the Revolutionary War to then, but a little over 110 years ago when he was president. Yeah, he took them out, and then he created a education book that made the illustrations made them look stupid, made them look just dumb, like they didn't have any IQ. There was no real like facial expressions. Yeah, that's the Democrat Party. It's the same party that it's always been. They're nothing has changed about them at all. They're still the same. They're still the same people that voted against the Civil Rights Act in the 1860s, 1960s. The ones that founded the KKK. So if anybody's banning blacks and their books, it would be them, not any Republican. But what was that other part that he just said? There was a long montage of a whole bunch of information there. But this is my favorite part of this whole speech. Let me go back just a little bit.
Conclusion. If you can believe it, banning books about black experiences.
Banning books. That's what he said there.
Find your race and rewrite history. Our history is not just about the past. It's about our present and our future. It's whether that future is the future for all of us.
Yeah, so, yeah. Nobody's banning books, but them. So, Jill Biden here, her lovely self, her senior abuser, is what I'd like to call her, of her husband. This was about a month ago. She did this. It's a little montage of the debate with what she had to say about it, and it is quite hilarious.
Where they're going to turn off those mics so that somebody can't ramble.
Get rid of the ability of Medicare
Or scream at somebody.
You're the sucker. You're the loser.
You need to see Trump, and you need to see the president, and you need to see the differences.
Yeah, we noticed.
My husband's, and you're going to see how smart he is and the experience he has.
We finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden.
And you'll see somebody who, like you're saying, I'm going to use Joy's words, can't put a sentence together, and everything is beautiful.
Joe, our country is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate.
So I think the American people deserve to see the two men who are running for this office. Your choice is going to be clear.
She's not wrong.
Yeah, that is very true. Your choice will be clear come this November, because if Joe freaking Biden is elected again, these last 4 freaking years, 3.5 years have just been horrendous. You've got record inflation, record gas prices. I mean, the cost for everything is outrageous. You have new wars that have been started. I mean, Putin saw what happened, with how weak the Afghanistan pullout was. And he's like, hey, this is my opportunity here to go into Ukraine and enact some what he would think would be, I guess, revenge or something, or, take back what he thinks they lost because America is weak. And there is an interesting thing that I'll post later about the Ukraine and where all the money is going. And I might get to that later. It is astonishing. It is absolutely astonishing how much money has been. It's just nobody knows where it is anymore. So there's that's going on. Our border is a disaster. Americans are dying from illegals who, if they're, when Trump was in, and I'm not saying he's perfect. I don't think he's a perfect man at all. And I'm not out there with the whole blinders for Trump or anything like that, because Morally, no. I was talking to we have the 4th of July. Talking to my family, I see the two different distinctions. I put I was telling them, I see a but. There's a but there with him, because I know what his presidency was. We were prosperous under him. Everything was great. The country was great. It was secured. I'm not saying that there was a perfect border, but it was not hundreds and millions that have been poured in under him. That wasn't at all. There was no new wars started under him. You've got the mess going on with Israel and Hamas, and that never would have happened if Trump was in either. So I'm not saying he's a perfect man at all. Morally, he's probably not at all very good, with what's going on. But I put a but. I always, I told them, I was like, I put a but in here because I want the other stuff to come back. I think everybody, the reason he's so popular is because they want all of this. He's saying the stuff that we're all kind of thinking. I love the fact that he calls out the liberal media, and their BS and everybody else's BS. I love that he calls them out for all that stuff. And it's just, he will do so much better because right now, and then, after these 4 years of his presidency, because I don't know how you can sit there and vote for Biden. I don't understand how you can do it, because he's all in. I've got clips here that he's all in to keep going in the race, even though there were some Democrats, some of the media is telling him, yeah, we might look in a different direction here because of how bad that debate was, because it was horrendous. So yeah, it's just a nightmare. So yes, so hopefully November, please, for the love of heaven and for the country, let's do this. So here, let's go over some of the lovely excuses, and then I might get to this Ukrainian thing, and it's quite shocking. I will post it on my socials, and I believe I have already posted it on X, retweeted it. It's a video, about 5-minute video of where the money is. A lot of the money that supposedly is going over there for aid, air quotes, that really isn't going for aid at all. So stay tuned for that. But here's the lame excuses that the White House is giving.
We would invite the president to come here and tell us that directly. Noted, Kelly. But
if he's awake.
That's inappropriate.
If he's awake.
As you heard from your colleague, the president of the WHA, that's inappropriate. Thank you, Kelly.
Oh, they didn't like the fact that they call him out. Let's do that again.
We would invite the president to come here and tell us that directly. Noted, Kelly. But
if he's awake.
That's inappropriate. As you heard from your colleague, the president of the WHA, that's inappropriate. Thank you, Kelly.
That's inappropriate to say that if the president's awake. I don't know what time this is happening right now, or it happened, but that's a fair statement. That is a fair statement, because who knows how long this guy's day is? If it's 5 minutes, maybe an hour, but yeah. So that's quite great. So. Here's the White House and KJP, Karine Jean-Pierre, blaming why the president's debate was so bad.
That the president was still tired 12 days after returning from Europe, had a cold, but then went to the Waffle House, and then the following day staged such a huge comeback that he gave those North Carolina remarks. Help us understand.
Have you had a cold before?
Of course I've had a cold before.
So you probably, well, come on, Jackie. Let's be very, let's be.
12 days after he returned, though.
But
and
you
he
also,
jet lag yesterday.
Hold on a second. There's a cold, there's a jet lag. You combine that, he can
The campaign that he would also resign. Are there any discussions about
absolutely
the vice
not.
president assuming his duties?
Absolutely not.
Ooh, she didn't like that at all. But those are legitimate concerns. How are those not legitimate concerns? From what we saw, I mean, the massive difference from the State of the Union just 6 months ago, or no, it was less than 6 months. It was like 5 months ago. It was like February that they did that. But, yeah, the massive difference is just astounding. He can't put sentences together that make any sense. So I love that. I love how, no, he had a cold and he was jet lagged. Oh, okay. Sure he was. But he did have a July 4th speech here. It was, I guess, well, let's just have a listen.
That World War I cemetery in France. And the one that one of our colleagues, the former president, didn't want to go and be up there. I probably shouldn't even say it anyway. We got to just remember who the hell we are. We're the United States of America. And by the way, I've been all over the world with you. I've been in and out of battles anyway.
He's been in and out of the world, and he's been in battles. For what battles has he been in?
You got me, man. I'm not going anywhere. All right. All right, I'll come back out when they open the gate, okay? Thank you. One last thing. You know, I used to think when I was a senator, there were always congestion on the highways. There's no congestion anymore. None. We go on the highway, there's no congestion. And so the way they get me to stop talking.
What the crap is he talking about? There's no congestion on the highway? Well, sure, there's no congestion for you right now because they clear the road. There is no congestion. You don't sit there in traffic, you doofus. I watched that, and I had driven around Dallas. I went over to down near Dallas here, and it took about 2 hours to go to where me and my kids were going, and to come back. It took about 2 hours to do all that. There was congestion. We were stopped on the highway. So, what the crap is he talking about? There's no congestion. Go to any major city, and I 100% guarantee you there is congestion on the highway there, Joe.
They'll say, we just shut down all the roads, Mr. President. You're going to lose all the votes if you don't get in. But anyway, I'll be back out. Thank you. I love you. Thank you.
So then he goes on a fake jog and run around and who knows what else. But, yeah. Oh, my gosh. Here's more of that speech.
Jill and I, Secretary Austin, Mrs. Austin, were honored. So many of your families are here on this special day. I really mean it. You know, I was in that World War...
What the crap is he talking about? Here, hold on.
Jill and I, Secretary Austin, Mrs. Austin, were honored. So many of your families are here on this special day. I really mean it. You know, I was in that World War I cemetery in France.
All right, that's just the rest of it. But my gosh, what the crap is he talking about? This is just so bad. Here's the beginning of that Independence Day speech of his. Kamala's introducing him.
4th of July, everyone. Happy Independence Day. And we give thanks to our Commander-in-Chief, the President of the United States.
The Vice President? She's about to say that.
President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Ho, ho, ho. Happy Independence Day.
Ho, ho, ho. It's not Christmas there, dude. Thanks, what? Christmas in July? Is that what he's trying to talk about there? Ho, ho, ho. He's trying to be funny because it's just not funny. No, it's just insanity. He's lovely, isn't he lovely? So here he is, saying he's going to stay in the race, despite the fact that he just crapped his pants at the debate.
Probably heard we had a little debate last week. Can't say it was my best performance. But ever since then, there's been a lot of speculation. What's Joe going to do? Well, let me say this clearly as I can. I'm staying in the race. I'll beat Donald Trump. I will beat him again in 2020.
Wait, hold on there. You'll beat him again in 2020? What year does he think it is?
Well, by the way, we're going to do it again in 2024.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's funny. At the same time, it's really sad and pathetic that this guy thinks that he's okay to run for president, that his family is pushing him to run for president. He shouldn't have done it in the first place. I mean, my gosh. No, to save money for one thing, and I mean, for Jill, I think it's just money and power. It's about power for her. It's about power for all of them. Maybe it was about power for him too. Because now it is just so obvious. It is just so blatantly obvious how just messed up in the head he really is. And it's quite sad because this is just massive, massive elder abuse here. I mean, here's a nice montage of just how wonderful the president is.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
When Joe Biden came into office, he inherited success. All Biden had to do was do nothing, just not screw it up.
So I'm sorry, this is not what this clip is. This clip is a movie trailer for a movie trailer that Trump is putting out. There we go. So you talk about Biden and you can't form sentences. So here we go.
Safe streets to record crime.
Are you for defunding the police?
How are you defining defund the police?
We went from $2 gas to $4 gas.
We are in the longest sustained period of a wrong track number that high in the history of our poll.
We went from stable prices to record inflation.
Over $1.3 billion.
You can't put two sentences together.
After I signed the Act, Ketanji drowned Jackson.
Putin's autocracy. Yeah.
You can't find the stairs off a stage when he makes a speech.
We have Joe Biden with an open border, a red carpet invitation. If you're a terrorist, come murder Americans here today.
Joe Biden came into office and unsecured the border on purpose.
I want a number. How many people have you let into this country?
You don't know. Does anybody know? None of you know.
We're in the middle of a war in this country. It is a war between those of us who love the United States of America and a fringe minority who hates this country and what we stand for.
Is the United States safer from foreign terror threats today than when Joe Biden took office?
If you took the 10 worst presidents and added them up, they would not have done the damage to this country as Joe Biden has done.
Trump handed him an economy on a silver platter.
Raise your hand if you think President Trump's policies on the economy would be better for your family. All right, so that is everybody.
2, 10, 12, 15. Whoop, stepping on a... It's black. Anyway.
Joe Biden, I don't believe he knows what he's doing. I really don't.
The chaotic and deadly U.S. evacuation from Afghanistan stunned Americans and the world.
My teenage daughter would have planned a better exit than Joe Biden did.
When Putin saw how incompetent we were, he said, wow, I'm now going to go into Ukraine.
This is what Russian President Vladimir Putin unleashed on Ukraine.
What has Joe Biden done? Allowed two wars to start on his watch in the Ukraine and the one in Israel.
It is one of the darkest moments of the Biden presidency to date.
It's almost like they intentionally tried to set the Middle East on fire.
Hamas terrorists went door to door, slaughtering anyone they could find.
We're going to end up in World War III because of this guy. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Who are you going to vote for?
Trump.
And why?
I'll let you guess. I'm willing to do whatever I have to do to save our country and to save our Constitution.
He's doing this for one reason and one reason alone, because we are on a rescue mission.
Trump's rescue mission, saving America.
It's like we drafted a quarterback
For $159 billion.
and then you realize after 2 games he can't play.
So, yep. So that is TrumpSavesAmericaMovie.com if you want to go and check that out. I mean, how do you disagree, or how do you say that any of that stuff is not true? Because the White House is now saying that's a cheap fake, it's not real. The videos that you're seeing or the things that you're hearing aren't true when you just heard it. These things, and I didn't doctor it. It's just a montage of stuff put together, of clips of him that he cannot speak to save his freaking life. And it's just unbelievable. Unfreaking believable. So I want to kind of change gears a little bit. And, I did mention that, I don't know, maybe let's talk about this for a minute here. Because the vast majority of voters think Democrats have a better chance of winning if Biden is replaced, according to a CNN poll. You have the vast majority of voters, 75%, think Democrats would have a better chance of winning the White House in November if President Biden is not the party's nominee, according to a post-debate CNN poll released Tuesday that was conducted by the SSRS. Former President Donald Trump is leading Biden by 6 points. I don't understand how he's not leading him by like 50. 49 to 43, according to the poll, which CNN said matched the results of their presidential poll from April. According to the poll, Vice President Kamala Harris would receive 45% of registered voters' support against Trump in a hypothetical matchup, and the former president would receive 47%. Gavin Newsom would receive 43% compared to 48% for Trump. Transportation Secretary Peter Buttigieg, that's what his name is. It's spelled like that. How does he get 43%? And he's just as dumb and incompetent as all of them. And then Trump would receive 47%. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer would receive 42% compared to 47%. So these are just some options that came out this article. And obviously Joe Biden doesn't care what this says. He's going to stay in it. He's not going to move out. He's not going to leave. He just has to be beaten. And so hopefully that happens. So interesting. But so since it is, I want to change gears a little bit. And there is something, I did mention that I went with my kids to the Mercury One museum. And they have a lot of cool movie things. Like they have some Ben-Hur and some Ten Commandments movie props. They've got some Indiana Jones, some Star Wars, some Superman. They have Christopher Reeve's original Superman outfit, which is really cool. I'm a big DC guy. They also have one of Christian Bale's masks from the Dark Knight series. They have a Gettysburg cannon that BLM defaced, and they decided just to leave it to show this is part of American history now, where, that was just fine, 4 years ago at this time, that, you had, millions of people out there just breaking, destroying things, almost like an insurrection, almost they didn't like what was going on. That was okay. There's no big trials or prosecutions for what happened 4 years ago when BLM and Antifa decided to burn down American cities and businesses, even though some of them said Black Lives Matter. They still burned it down. It didn't matter. So they have that. It's a lot of the stuff is really cool. They have some old cars that are really cool. They have an original, I think, Model T. It still runs quite, which is quite interesting. And then they have a whole bunch of really, really cool American history artifacts. Like they have things from Jamestown, that was like 400 years ago. They have the little beads, the glass beads that the settlers traded with the Indians for goods. They have some of the buttons. They have a lot of the Bibles. They have a ton of Bibles from that time period, and throughout the whole of our American history. They have Revolutionary time period muskets, which were really cool. They have some pistols. Those were I have to say, the firearms really kind of caught my eye because they have this big vault that they put in that kind of stuff. They don't put the movie stuff so much isn't really in there, but it is just an amazing. If you have a chance here and you're in the DFW area, just call them up and that you can schedule a tour. And they have just an amazing. They have a ring from Alexander Hamilton that has actual George Washington's hair in it. They've got pieces of his George Washington's uniform from when he was in the Indian Wars as a British officer. They've got just tons and tons of documents. They've got stuff all the way till Nazi Germany. They've got have a pair or a set of Hitler's keys. Hitler actually had those keys, and they have them there. So they have just an absolute ton of stuff. And one of the great things they also have is an original draft of the Declaration of Independence. And I wanted to go over that. And there was a huge section of that that Thomas Jefferson wrote about slavery. I mean, everything, all the other grievances that the colonists had, those lines, there are a sentence or two for those grievances that, Thomas, like taxation without representation. I mean, that's always the big one that everybody knows about. It really wasn't that one wasn't as important as a lot of the other things. But in the original draft, there is a massive, massive paragraph on slavery, which is interesting because everybody's like, well, he owned slaves. Thomas Jefferson was a slave owner, blah, blah, blah. If we always look at history, with this whole political correctness lens, and I don't think that's because if the people that say, oh, well, he had slaves, he was an evil, awful man. If you lived back then and you were him and you had that lifestyle and that way of being, we can't really comprehend at that moment because that's obviously not a thing anymore. Although there are studies that are told that the slave trade now is actually worse than it ever was during that time period. And so Thomas Jefferson writes this huge, massive paragraph, and I want to read part of it here. Or actually, I'll just read the whole thing because it's just amazing. But it was not put into the final draft of the Declaration of Independence because of a couple delegates from South Carolina and Georgia. They were against it. And to be a unified nation, they wanted it to be unanimous. They wanted it to be the United States. They wanted everything to be united. So unfortunately, that part of the Declaration that he originally wrote was not included in its final draft because Georgia and South Carolina, dang you. But they did put in the provisions and the mechanisms to where slavery could eventually be abolished, and it obviously happened. And it took 700,000 lives just about to do that with the American Civil War. So here is what Jefferson wrote on slavery, and he lays into King George pretty heavily. Now, it is written in their English, so just bear with me here for a little bit. So he writes, speaking of King George, he has waged cruel war against human nature itself, violating its most sacred rights of life and liberty in the persons of a distant people who never offended him, captivating and carrying them into slavery in another hemisphere, or to incur miserable death in their transportation thither. Because it was quite awful transporting them from Africa all the way here to the United States and, other places. This piratical warfare, the Oribium of infidel powers, is the warfare of the Christian king of Great Britain, and Christian is capitalized. So to make his point even more, determined to keep open a market where men should be bought and sold, he has prostituted his negative for the suppressing every legislative attempt to prohibit or to restrain this execrable commerce, and that this assemblage of whores might want no fact or distinguished die. He is now exciting those very people to rise in arms among us, and to purchase that liberty of which he has deprived them, and murdering the people upon whom he has obtruded them, thus paying off former crimes committed against the liberties of one people with crimes which he urges them to commit against the lives of others. So, in other words, he's forcing the colonies to continue slavery. So it's just, when we saw that there at the studio, or the museum there that they have, I mean, along with the other things, it was just incredible. It just goes to show you that they absolutely hated the slavery. They hated it. George Washington, upon his death, and upon Martha's, he freed the slaves, his slaves there. And the other part that they were worried about with the slaves, is they didn't have an education. So it wasn't like they, had schooling at all. They didn't have any of that opportunity. So how else were they supposed to, I'm not at all saying that slavery is good, so don't take it this way or that way. But they also looked at him like, okay, if we free all these people, what are they going to do? They don't have an education. Not like they can all go out and develop a trade or, things like that. So they did their best with the situation that was forced upon them by King George. And I believe I have said this before, that, everybody talks about reparations from the U.S. government. Go over to England. Go over to the European countries and nations that forced this evil act upon the colonies here. Because they started that whole disastrous mess hundreds of years before America was even a country. And we did the best we could and got rid of it within less than 80 years. And it's just, they sit there now, Jefferson and all these, they're just vilified. The founding fathers are vilified as they're just white, racist, old, rich men, when, quite frankly, they were not any of those things. Most of them were not rich at all. A few of them were. There were 56 men that signed the Declaration of Independence. And most of them didn't see the result of that signing. There were some that didn't see it. They were killed during the war. And they pledged everything, their lives, their sacred honor, and everything that they had, their money. And And what we have today is the result of that. And it is an amazing thing. We are not perfect, and that's what they say at the museum there, is that they'll show, they showed some of the slavery, some of the slave things, and they had some of the weapons there from Africa, who the Africans enslaved their own people and sold other Africans to the Europeans. So, there's a quote there from Elon Musk that every people on planet Earth have been enslaved at one point in time in history. It's just a matter of when it was. I mean, whites have been enslaved by whites. Everybody's been enslaved by somebody at some point. It's just a matter of dates. But nobody talks about that, apparently. You don't. Norway isn't in trouble for the slaves they had from England during the Viking time, but they don't have to pay reparations to the English. There's none of that. But America's the evil, awful one because they tried. They absolutely tried, and they wanted to get rid of it. I had a nice discussion about the 3/5 clause that's in the Constitution, and it wasn't because they thought the slaves or blacks were 3/5 of a person. They did it because they didn't want, because there was a lot more blacks than there were the whites in the South, and it was a matter of representation for them in Congress. Because if they had been represented as 1-to-1, there's a good chance slavery would never have been ended. So it wasn't because they thought they were 3/5 of a person. They were trying to minimize the representation in Congress so that the South could not just run things with just massive representation and keep slavery forever. So just interesting, very interesting. I didn't know that going into this, that Thomas Jefferson had written that. And it's sad because right after George Washington freed his slaves, it was again illegal to free slaves, so Jefferson could not do it. But they hated it. I guarantee you they hated it. They hated that this whole system of slavery was forced upon them by King George and by England. So if you have a problem with that, go talk to the King of England, King Charles. Go ask for reparations, even though they don't have any power, really, because they have a prime minister and they don't have a Congress. What the crap do they have? Houses of Lords and House of Commons or something like that. Go talk to them. Go talk to them because they're the ones that forced it upon the colonies and forced it upon us. And the fact that then we had to have a civil war that cost them around 700,000 lives. One thing that I always, speaking of like 4th of July week, is that July 1st through 3rd is the Battle of Gettysburg. I have always remembered that. I used to watch the movie Gettysburg with Martin Sheen and Jeff Daniels in it every year as kind of a tradition. I haven't done that in probably 3 or 4 years, though. But that battle was the turning point in the war, and I believe they signed the Emancipation Proclamation right before it or during that time period. But yeah, just great. It's America is a great country. It's a great nation, and it is. I love celebrating the 4th of July. I love celebrating the birth of our nation and how great it really is. There are some awful things about it, but name a country that doesn't have awful things about it, and you're not going to find one. So America is great. We need to keep it that way. We need to make sure in November that we get this demented guy for his sake too, not just for our freaking pocketbooks. And for the safety of the world, because our enemies are closing in and they're sending their people across our borders to kill us. So that's fantastic as well. But not only for our sakes and our pocketbook sakes, but for his sake as well, because he doesn't need to be running the country. No, I mean, the evidence is right there in front of your face. He doesn't need to be running the country. He doesn't need to be president of the United States. He needs to go to Delaware, stay at his beach house, and just leave us the crap alone, for one thing, and just live out his days and his corruption and lies, because that's all he knows how to do, quite frankly. So, happy 4th of July week, everybody. And hopefully you did have a great and safe 4th of July. Hopefully no things were blown off, fireworks. Because working EMS, that happens. So be careful. So I will talk with you next week. Again, you can check out my other things on Facebook, X, TikTok, True Social, YouTube, and Instagram is the new one. So the Kate and Eric Show on all of those, and have a great week, and I will talk with you next time. Bye-bye.